All right, so today is a very, very crucial class because I am going to be discussing now onlays and inlays as well as replacing the canines and handling the wide edentulous spaces. Now, these are very crucial because these are exactly ADC situations, especially in the canine and lateral incisor areas when there are teeth missing. They are very challenging areas to replace, right? And you've seen the SBQs in and out of ADC around those concepts. Onlays are getting so much asked now in the prosto. Your concepts around onlays and inlays have to be super solid. I hope you all understand the relevance and importance of this series. This series by far is the groundbreaking series that you can attend for your ADC preparation. When you go to the examination, you'll see these concepts exactly there in exam. So first of all, let's set intention. This entire series, you're going to show up, attend, and assimilate as much information as possible. And it is going on the app as well. So you will review it later as well, because this forms the basis of almost 20% of the questions of examination. And that is a crystal clear pass or fail situation. So when you know prosto this strong, that definitely levels up your preparation, right? Pushes you at least 20% immediately towards a pass. So everybody please tell me that does it make sense? How important this entire series is for you. All right, so let's set the intention and everybody go in the receptive mode. Everybody go into the sponge mode. We are all the sponges right now and going to absorb all the information that there is in the class. Lots of learning. I'll try to keep it 90 minutes, somewhere around 90 minutes or maybe 100, not more, so that whatever we study and prepare today sticks and is decent enough time and you don't even feel overwhelmed with a lot of information, but extremely crucial topic. So everybody is in receptive mode and questions you can keep for the end and I will cover at that time, right? Does that sound good? Is everyone ready for today's class? Is everyone ready to learn and assimilate and absorb, receive, and be the sponges, be the best sponges in these 22 weeks before exam, and then all that information comes out pouring into the examination questions and translating to the success. That is exactly how we do it. All right. All right. Let me share my screen. Hmm. So today we are doing the second part of our FPD and CD Prosto series, part 2, and I will try to cover these three topics hopefully in today's session, which is ceramic onlays, then replacement of canines and wide edentulous spaces. That is the intention for today's class. I hope we can cover all those topics today. What is onlay? Basically, you have been doing in our internal UAF2 classes also. What is onlay really, and why is ADC asking so many questions on onlay? Why is ADC, do you think, asking so many questions on inlays and onlays? Number one reason of emphasis on onlay is being conservative. As I tell you in our UAF2 classes as well, that the entire global dentistry is moving towards minimally invasive and being completely conservative. Does that make sense, right? I have been telling you in internal classes also, that is your criteria also to keep in mind when you are answering the questions in exam. It helps you with your management planning questions. It helps you with your treatment and evaluation questions, that the whole trend towards across the globe in dentistry is going towards being conservative. Yes or no? Gone are the days when you would chop off the teeth for aesthetics and give your lithium disilicate crowns. Gone are those days now. That was early time when ceramics had made their entry into the dentistry and gaining a lot of popularity maybe a decade ago. But now in the last decade, again the curve is going towards being conservative, again choosing first minimal preparation options, micro abrasions, bleachings, and the resin infiltrations, veneers over your crowns, and onlays over your crowns wherever possible. Does that make sense? Give me big yes or no, so that, because it is your driving force for treatment and evaluation questions, whether it's for operative, whether it's for cosmetic, aesthetic dentistry, or for your prosthodontics, right? So it all makes sense. Even FPDs are now minimal prep. FPDs are making their way back into the dentistry, using your retainers as onlays or using your retainers as inlays. So minimal prep FPDs, instead of using full crowns as retainers, even minimal prep FPDs are making their way back. Does that make complete sense? Am I giving you full understanding? Every sentence that I'm saying is a concept, is something that you will see in exam as an option, as a possible answer. So keep your eyes and brain open so that you start imagining that yes, these are all the latest trends now. This is where Australia also emphasizes the treatment and evaluation as well, to stay minimally invasive. So your DM questions, diagnosis and management planning questions, and treatment and evaluation cluster questions will be defined by being conservative. So onlays and inlays are one of those options, one of those methods by which you can provide treatment and but still remain conservative. Now, can anyone tell me where would you use onlay most? We have seen those questions in UF2. We have done those concepts and articles and everything. Anyone here who's enrolled with us and is doing UF2 classes? So we have cuspal coverage. Where would you need that, Aisha? Think a little. What is the DM? Tiba, absolutely correct. Tiba got my question. So it's mostly in crack situations that you would be doing your onlays, right? Cuspal coverage is where mostly is needed, right? That's correct. That's wonderful. So onlay is basically a conservative restoration which you would use to repair some form of damage or decayed posterior teeth where the cuspal loss is there. So onlays help in replacement of cusp. Is that concept clear? Yes or no? So it is also sometimes called partial crown, right? It restores, so onlay will have the internal component as well as the cuspal component. The internal portion will replace how the inlay replaces in the restoration in the cavity. And then there is a coronal, the external portion, the cuspal portion, which will restore the natural tooth structure of the cusps, right? So onlays can be direct or indirect, and they're made from ceramic, composite, and gold. So direct ones are when you do your cuspal coverage with composite, you're also kind of creating an onlay, but which is with your direct technique. Is that right? And 1.5 to 2 mm of thickness is required in preparation, because that would give you the resistance form on your composite. So that's your direct composite cuspal coverage. Yes or no, please? Is that concept is visualized, imagined, and understood? So for your resistance form, you would need 1.5 to 2 mm of preparation, right? Clear? And it can also be sometimes called partial crown. Now, what is inlay? Inlay is a restoration, doesn't have any cuspal component. It is only used to repair the decay and damage which is within the cusps. Onlay was repairing and replacing the damage which was also covering one or more cusp. Whereas inlay is only the internal replacement without replacing the cusp. And it is also direct or indirect restorations, right? Sorry, inlays are done indirectly, but they can be done in ceramic or can be done with your composite as well. So indirect composite is also used for your inlays. Very commonly it is fabricated indirectly in your lab and then is cemented to the tooth structure. Correct? Is that right? So for very non-retentive cavities, inlays can be used because they rely on the cement for the retention and not on the remaining tooth structure. So it helps strengthening the tooth while preserving as much of the natural tooth structure. So can you all see in this image here? This is only replacement of the internal structure. It's kind of like a DO cavity, right? DO restoration, replacing the marginal ridge, but not cusp, because partial cusps are still remaining here. Can you appreciate that? So it is only replacing the internal structure. Majority of the strength in this, the wall is still remaining. So cusp is still remaining. It's not replacing the cusp. Whereas in onlay, you see the entire cusp wall is gone partially. So it is replacing the cusp as well as the internal structure. Does the picture give you full clarity and difference between inlay and onlay? Anyone who ever had confusion now, is it completely clear now? So you see here, this is going completely over the cusp and partially over the wall. It is different from the crown from the fact that the crown would have extended completely to the equigingival margin, completely replacing the full wall. Whereas onlay doesn't replace the wall, but yes, overlaps partially, but replaces the cusps as well as the internal structure. So inlay versus onlay, the difference is absolutely clear. Now comes the third situation, which is also now coming in the exam, which is overlay, right? You have seen that in the examination, one of the options, inlay, overlay, and onlay, right? And then a full crown. So overlay is nothing but just a more extensive form of an onlay. Some of the clinicians use the term overlay and onlay kind of interchangeably as well, right? So it is used when a tooth is severely weakened. So overlay usually replaces all the crown, all the cusp. Can you see that? Overlay is replacing all the four cusp. And onlay is replacing only few cusps, right? So that's the difference. Overlay will completely cover all the four cusps, but still remaining into the half of the wall, not going like full into the complete wall preparation. So still preserves the natural tooth structure here. Does that make full sense? And can you appreciate the picture of overlay? So it gives the maximum protection, it gives the strength, but it is also conservative than your full crown because some of the natural tooth walls are still preserved. Yes or no, please? Is the concept crystal clear or not? Now, in the examination, when the clinical picture of the cusp is given to you and you see how many cusps are gone, so if two cusps are gone, do you have to really choose overlay? Tell me now, yes or no? The difference between the overlay and onlay. So does that immediately help you, this learning, this visualization, does it immediately help you get the answer correctly in the exam or not? Tell me, because any class you attend at Winspert, you will absolutely get an actual exam concept. Because once all, and if you are given an exam, all four cusps are lost and you're replacing all the four cusps, but the half of the walls are still there. Now tell me, would you go with a crown or would you go with an overlay? Beautiful, Jazz. Beautiful, Aditi, Jaspreet. Absolutely correct. So you would then go for your overlays instead of crowns. And ADC is now giving you these as options. So you would choose conservative. Does that make sense? So now looking at the picture again, so you never forget this concept, and in exam you absolutely, when you look at the situation, so only one or few cusps, onlay, only internal structure, inlay. When all the cusps require replacement but walls are still there, overlay. Does that make sense? And is it not a beautiful complete description which gives you now the full clarity of these different kinds of restorations? Now, what are the advantages of onlays and what are the disadvantages and what are the materials used? So basically the advantage is that absolutely it is conservative compared to your full crowns. It gives you better strength than your direct large fillings. So instead of giving your cuspal coverage with direct composite, a ceramic onlay would be a better option. Yes or no, please? In a cracked tooth also, giving cuspal coverage with direct composite versus, so larger fillings versus your ceramic onlays would be better options. It would give you good aesthetics. It would protect your weakened cusps as well, right? So that to prevent further tooth fracture. Disadvantage is that it can be expensive than your direct fillings, and it could require lab work because it's an indirect restoration. It is technique sensitive. Of course, the preparation needs to be very, very carefully done, right? And the materials that you would use for onlay is gold, you can use ceramic, and you can use your composite resin as well. Indirect composite as well can be used for your onlays. So now based on the material and based on the technique, directly or indirectly, onlays are direct onlays or indirect onlays. As I told you, when you use your chair side composite resin restoration material, then it's a direct onlay where you give a 1.5 to 2 mm of cuspal coverage with your direct composite material. Clear for everyone what a direct onlay is? If any time in exam you see these terms, will this completely make sense now? And is it all beautifully coming together today? Are we dispersing all the confusion around our direct onlays? Yes or no? Right, we are. So the indirect onlay is the one which is made outside the mouth in the lab with CAD/CAM technology, and it's bonded to the tooth later. Ceramic onlay is an indirect onlay which is made from your ceramic or porcelain material or zirconia, right? Now, based on the material also, you can classify your onlays. There are metallic onlays or non-metallic onlays. And based on the surface coverage, you can have your intracoronal, which is mainly within the tooth structure with limited cuspal coverage. And one can be extracoronal onlay, which extends over and protects cusps externally. Right? So it is in intracoronal and extracoronal only is different in the amount of extent of your onlay over the cusp. Sometimes you don't have a cavity internally, only protecting, like you have a, so extracorneal would be in your cracks, right? If there is a crack without any cavity, without any restoration, then that would be, right? No, 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 Sabagi, what's that question? Indirect onlay is the one which is used, made by using indirect composite. Indirect composite or ceramic, which is lab made. It still will cover only one or two cusps only. Overlays where all your cusps are getting material. Sabhagi, indirect is a technique. Onlay and overlay are the extent. Did you forget this picture, Sabhagi? Bringing you back here. Focus, please. Sabhagi, now do you think this one cusp and all the cusp coverage depends upon the indirect or direct thing? No, right? That's a technique. Sabhagi, am I helping you with your doubt here? Because that's very, very foundational. I don't want you to go wrong in this one in exam at all because ADC is using these terms. Okay, so see, onlay and overlay is only the extent and coverage. Number one, everybody got that or no? Onlay is one or two cusps, overlay is all cusp, right? And indirect and direct is the technique of fabrication, right? So onlay can be made direct, chair side with composite. Onlay can also be made indirect, which would be your lab made with ceramic. Right? Clear for everyone? And Sabagi, you as well. I hope this is sorted because that's very, very foundational and I want you to leave with complete clarity. Yes, Kabir, I was coming back to that intracorneal and extracorneal. Everyone, let's focus. So suppose intracoronal onlay would be something which has the intracoronal structure replacing like inlay and then also giving cuspal coverage. So suppose there is a restoration due or existing amalgam or maybe existing caries where the cusp is also involved. Give me yes or no, please. Please do not interact on chat right now. Focus your attention to my concept. Let me bring all your attention to me and now tell me, suppose you have a restoration, existing restoration or caries, right? Then you are doing intracoronal tooth structural removal as well as cusp is also gone. So you're giving an onlay on that also. So the onlay will have an intracoronal component as well as the cusp replacement component. Yes or no? So it is an intracoronal onlay. Now imagine a molar which is only affected with the crack but doesn't have any caries. Internally the tooth is completely no problem. only a crack. In that case, you're only protecting the cusp, right? You're not giving any internal structure replacement. Simran, can you please first receive and then ask question? You're completely reflecting it off. I'm giving you very, very crucial concept here. Can you please focus on first receiving? Right? So extra coronal onlay would be given in what situation, Simran? Bringing back your attention to the concept. Simran, can you mention? Extra coronal onlay will be given for your crack because that doesn't have an intracoronal structure removal required, right? Clear for everyone? Crystal clear? Intracoronal and extracoronal X-ray. Beautiful. See, no doubts should remain. If you're focusing, nothing will get missed, okay? Now, what are the important features for your indirect onlays? So what are the indirect onlays? Write down quickly. These are the lab made ones, right, Sabagi? These are the lab made onlays which are replacing one or few cracks but not completely. Okay. So now these materials rely on the bond strength between the bonding agent, dentine bonding agent, right? So number one, the strength will also come from your dentine bonding agent. If you remember from the last class, I told you when you use low strength or medium strength ceramic, you're relying on your strength from your dentine bonding agent and the cement itself. Then that's why we use your self-adhesive or aesthetic cements. Everyone remembers that? Am I giving you a quick brush up? Wasn't the last class so clear on its own that you did not even require the revision? Did it feel like that? Like to me, it feels so fresh that it was so clear, it was so sorted that you don't even require the revision and these concepts just suddenly stick to you and always come in handy. I want today's class also to be that clear for everyone. Okay. So now that is the strength is coming from the dentine bonding agent and the cement. Then advantage of indirect technique is also that you control the contact points in the lab on the articulator. So you can keep them lighter, right? Where the contacts are limited and where there may be heavy loads. So you can control the contact points. Then most important feature is that you can give it sufficiently thick with your ceramics. The thickness can be kept to give enough resistance to the fracture. And then porcelain and indirect composites are weak in thin sections. Therefore, at least 2 millimeter of the interocclusal space should be left to overcome this problem. Right? Yes. Now, for example, let's take a case now. Okay. Let's take a case study. Are we all ready? This can show up in exam. So this is a case of gastric erosion and patient is suffering from your regurgitation erosion and needs restoration on his premolar as part of a more complicated treatment plan. So overall in the mouth, you're doing a complicated treatment plan, but we are focusing on this premolar right now. There are no other medical complications and he has symptoms of reflux, which has been controlled with the medication. Both teeth are vital, right? So teeth are vital here. It's only grossly eroded. Can you all appreciate these two teeth? And do you see that some of the partial crown cusp is still left, right? But lingual cusps are kind of entirely gone in both the situations. So we don't have much of the complete coverage is still not required because buccal wall is still there. So can you all appreciate visibly? This is exactly the kind of pictures you'll get in ADC exam. Is it beautiful or not? Now, when you see a picture like that and you know immediately that you're not jumping to elective RCTs, post and crown, or inlays are also not sufficient, or direct composite is also not sufficient. And because it's not both the cuspal coverage, we can still go with our onlay. Yes or no? Please now tell me that. Right? So this is the beauty of it. The concepts now that you have understood based on the extent of the damage, can you take that decision in diagnosis and management planning cluster, treatment and evaluation cluster? Now tell me, does that give you the strength and power in the exam or no? Yes, we will see, Jazz, as we move and discuss it. Let's see what are the options of treatment. Let's see That's options will be given to you in exam also like this. Is that right? Exam will also give you, okay, what are your options? Direct composite buildup, indirect composite, or porcelain or metal onlay. So, and elective root canal treatment with conventional post and core. Suppose you get these three options gone. No, ferrule is not absolutely gone, right? In this tooth, at least the first premolar, the wall is still remaining, right? So that in that case, that wall is gone, that you will replace that wall. Agreed? So you will replace that wall. If one wall is gone, do you go with complete? But if one wall is gone, do you go with complete crown? Do you need two? Or your onlay can replace that? So your more extended onlay wall can be the conservative method of replacing that one partial wall. Okay? So now direct composite buildup. These are your simplest restorations that you can do. Is that correct or not? These are the simplest that you could give here. And you can rely upon the strength of the bond between tooth and dentine, right? But however, it would be difficult to place because there are too many contact points gone now, right? And it would be clinically demanding technique. Other method is your indirect composite or porcelain or ceramic onlays. So you control the contact points with your onlays, or yes or no? Definitely, because you're replacing the cusp. Direct method would be preferred or indirect method would be preferred? Tell me now. When you're replacing this 50%, indirect would be better or direct would be better. So we can rule out the direct composite and we can stick with our indirect porcelain or ceramic. And elective root canal with conventional post and core. Is it not too destructive and will require removal of significant amount of tooth tissue and will be an over treatment and unnecessary right now? So your best answer in this case would be indirect composite, right? So you were using indirect ceramic, which is onlays, which were retained to the teeth by eluting cement using your dentine bonding agent. So you gave your ultimately your kind of like if you replace both the cusps here, it's like onlays or overlays. In exam, I told you also sometimes in exam, lot of clinicians use the term onlays and overlays interchangeably as well. All right. Control contact points means Masba that when both the cusps inclines are missing, right? Then you have to create the cuspal contact with the opposing teeth, right? With maintaining the load on those contacts also. So which is better done on articulator and indirect restorations or better done in direct chair side restorations? Masba, now you got it? Like recreating contacts because most of your occlusal surface and cusps are gone. So indirect restorations give you more flexibility and control over restoring the contact points. Yes or no, please, because of forming the original inclines. By taking the impression of both the cast on the articulator, you can, right? You can give your better original contacts. So let's wrap this up by learning the difference between inlays and onlays, right? So first of all, inlays within the cusp. Onlay is covering one or more cusps. Overlay covers all or nearly all cusps and entire occlusal surface. Inlay has less cuspal protection because it's only for intracoronal structure. Onlay gives partial cuspal protection and overlay gives you maximal cuspal protection. Inlay is a smaller restoration, onlay is larger, and overlay would be more extensive compared to the three, as I showed you in the picture also. Then inlay has only internal cavity, onlay has internal cavity plus some cusp, and overlay has most of your occlusal surface and cusp. Strength within your inlays is moderate. Onlay provides more strength to the tooth structure and overlay will give you maximum strength amongst the three because it will give you complete cuspal coverage. Amongst these three inlays, the most conservative onlay becomes moderate, and overlay is also more conservative compared to your full crown, but definitely less than your inlay and onlay based on the tooth structure involved. Does this table help you summarize everything that I taught you so far? And that completes our first topic for today. Moving on to our next topic, which is replacing canine. So I have a lot of important concepts to cover. Questions I'll strictly keep at the end, but I want you to first tell me broadly, is the confusion, the perpetual discussions and confusions between inlays, onlays, and overlays is crystal clear or not now? You learned a lot more than that. Your indirect, direct, chair side, material wise, and recreating your cuspal contacts and indications in your caries and your cracked teeth. So I've covered everything in this. Now comes very important another situation which keeps coming and showing up on ADC SVQs. Canines and laterals replacement are making its way back again and again in every ADC exam with a different patient, with a different presentation, different history. But the core around that is still the same, replacing the corner teeth in the mouth, where there can be challenge of the vertical dimension and horizontal dimension as well. Is that right? That is a very challenging situation, so it keeps showing up in exams. So this case is a classic example of all the problems: mesiodistal width problem, horizontal space problem, vertical space problem, right? And the corner tooth and this forces absolutely jazz. And one more thing with the canine is canine guided occlusion. Beautiful, Nitya, always proud of you. So canine guided occlusion is also a problem, aesthetics is also a problem, functional forces are also a problem. And more on that, adjacent teeth are always poor abutments for a canine, a lateral and a premolar, right? And occlusal guidance must be preserved or redesigned. So a lot of work to be done on your articulators as well, right? So everyone ready? Again, another challenging topic, but again, we will leave with crystal clarity. Do you want to feel that Eureka moments now? Again, with this one. So canine is your cornerstone of the mouth, and it is very strategically located at the junction of your anterior and posterior segments. It gives a lot of things in the mouth. It gives you lip support. It gives you facial aesthetics. It gives you arch form continuity. It gives you canine guidance as well. Most important is the canine guidance role in your dentate patients, right? On lateral excursion, it takes the load off from your posteriors as well as your other incisors and anteriors, right? It has the longest root in your dentition with excellent crown to root ratio, and it also has the largest periodontal ligament surface area and has a very high resistance to lateral forces. That is why canine guided occlusion is seen in naturally dentate patients, which gives the canine the capacity to hold the canine guided occlusion, that it has longest root and it has the periodontal ligament surface, which gives it the ability to actually give a canine guided occlusion. Yes or no, please? That is why it can take all the load. A single tooth can take all the load in lateral excursions. Yes or no, please? Okay, so the functional loading is definitely high on a canine. We know that. And aesthetic demands are critical in this area. We also agree with that. Space discrepancy will be common in this situation. Adjacent teeth are poor abutments. Do we agree with that also? And our canine guided occlusion should be either preserved or redesigned if you're giving in a maxillary canine missing situation. So what are the challenges which you will face in replacing a maxillary canine? So the main potential problem is horizontal space problem, which is the mesiodistal width. The average width of canine is about 8 mm, right? And if the space between first premolar and canine is more or less, then the problems will be created. So if there were other spaces already also present, so now if available space is significantly larger, like 12 mm is present mesiodistally between lateral and premolar, then if you give a pontic in that area, it would look very, very wide, and which would affect, because it's a very aesthetically prominent zone. Yes or no, please? That here the width of the pontic will immediately be noted. Even 1 mm off from your bilateral situation, immediately noted. Yes or no, please? And as dentist, have you realized it? Like, you see people anteriorly, the smile, and you immediately, the disproportions in the anterior segment immediately pop out. They become very obvious to us, right? So smile asymmetry is very likely to be getting affected in this canine region, and the proportions of the adjacent teeth can also be disturbed, right? That is why when you have horizontal space problems, how will you manage them? So basically, if there is an excessive horizontal mesiodistal space, more than 8 mm of your normal canine width, right? So what you can do is, first you make, actually you don't have any other solution, so you give a wider pontic, right? But that doesn't solve the problem because it gives you very unnatural appearance. Other thing is beautiful Akshata. When you're making a bridge, you can alter the width of the adjacent abutment teeth and crowns, and you can help the masking with this problem. Or you will keep the small space and accept the small space by giving a cantilever situation. Yes or no, please? So only last two solutions work, right? Either accepting and giving the small space, or by altering the width of the adjacent crowns, but a wider pontic will create a forever aesthetic problem. So what are the aesthetic principles when you're managing is that symmetry in the anterior region is crucial. Even when there is a minor asymmetry, it would be easily noticed. So what would you need in this situation? And one of the question in exam will absolutely ask for the same. In such situations, before giving the final resto, would you absolutely show your patient a diagnostic wax up? Yes or no, please? Just breathe. Beautiful. You got that. So a wax up is absolutely necessary, a diagnostic wax up to show to the patient either you're recreating the space using a cantilever bridge, or you're adjusting the width of the adjacent teeth and distributing it. So a diagnostic wax up for yourself and for your patient is absolutely mandate in this situation. It's an essential requirement. Okay. Now, what are the other problems that you can have in this canine replacement situation is a vertical space problem, right? Especially when there is a worn out dentition. Or sometimes over eruption of the opposing lower canine can happen in this space if it has not been replaced for a long time. Can that happen? Over eruption of opposing lower tooth into the edentulous space, right? Anterior teeth usually don't drift. So drifting and mesial space problem will not be there. In fact, there is mostly more horizontal space in these situations, but you can have your vertical space problem by over eruption of the lower teeth. This leads to insufficient occlusal clearance, and that's why pontic cannot be placed in an ideal position because it can give you functional interferences. Is that right? So you might have to position it too buccally, but that is also is going to affect what? Your aesthetics ultimately. If you position your upper canine too buccally because your lower canine is too over erupted, but that is completely going to affect your aesthetics as well as functional interferences. Isn't that right? The canine guidance will not be created. Yes or no? So both functionally and both aesthetically, if you do not adjust the over eruption of the lower tooth, it can affect the functional canine guidance as well as the aesthetic, right? That is why when you have such vertical space problem, you need to assess it on a semi-adjustable articulator, give a proper diagnostic wax up, and you will reposition the lower canine. Yes or no? So what will we do? How will we manage this reduced vertical space? First is positioning of the canine. One of the option is that you position the pontic to a more pronounced buccal position, but it can avoid the vertical relationship, but it is not of benefit because it can affect aesthetics, it can affect the functional canine guidance, right? So that is why it's not much of your better solution. Other solutions are intrusion of the opposing tooth, either DALs or orthodontic appliance or by occlusal reduction. These are the three methods by which you will recreate your vertical space. Am I correct that? With that, B, C, D, these three options. Yes, sometimes if it's only with enamelloplasty can be done, Nitya. But sometimes if it's too much extrusion and it goes into dentine, then you may be requiring the coverage of the dentine in the lower tooth also, right? With a crown, something like that. So that will get too invasive. Occlusal reduction has a risk of getting too invasive. Only you can do when there is very slight one, and you can do only preparation within the enamel. Am I correct? Everyone imagining all these situations or no? Yes, so B and C are the best options. So DAL appliance is used to create the vertical space. An appliance can be made which will intrude your opposing canine, right? And a space would be created which would be sufficient to place a Pontic in an ideal tooth position, right? Now the orthodontic intrusion can also be done similar way by using your orthodontic appliance, and you can regain the vertical space. If you cannot do orthodontics and DALs, only in some situation where there is very slight space, then you can give enamelloplasty, occlusal reduction. If suppose it is too much intruded and your reduction goes into the dentine. So yes, Sanjana, absolutely. DAL appliance can be used for single tooth, right? So DALs, what does it do? It can give you a localized increase in occlusal vertical dimension also. So it intrudes the contacted teeth, right? And it allows the passive eruption of non-contacting teeth by creating a restorative space. So the approach is still the same, but it is just a localized DAL. Sanjana, is that clear? Nitya, for you also. Yes, it is kind of reorganizing only, but localized reorganizing, right, Nitya? Not like a full mouth rehab. So what happens is with the DALS appliance, right? You will make an appliance which will intrude the opposing canine and allows the eruption of the adjacent teeth. Okay, so it is a localized increase in video. Everybody gets it? A localized DAL appliance gives a localized increase in video because the lower canine will intrude, right? And slightly increase in the adjacent teeth by passive eruption because they will come in no contact, right? So it will create your vertical restorative space. Similar method, you can use orthodontic intrusion as well. In case you can't do DALs or orthodontic intrusion, you will give reduction of occlusal surface of the opposing tooth. If it's little bit, you can do an enamel. If it's more than 2 mm, you will have to be cutting in the dentine. Then you will be requiring to give a crown. You will not leave dentinal tubules open. Does that make sense? Fully. Crystal clear or not? Sorted? Now, what are the other problems that you can face in replacing this is you can have a short clinical crown and a lateral incisor. That can also be a problem. Sometimes we have very small lateral incisors. So lateral incisors are very poor abutments. So that can be a problem or not. Especially some of the incisors, lateral incisors are even smaller than the normal crown height. Yes or no? Peg laterals and yes, so peg lateral also, Nitya. So lateral is anyways involved with maximum anomalies and shapes. So it is already a poor abutment and it can be further short clinical crown. So if lateral is also mesially inclined and has a short clinical crown, it can further complicate your bridge design. It will give you poor retention and resistance form. It will give you limited preparation height, right? And if it is mesially inclined, your path of insertion also changes compared to your premolar and your lateral incisor. Though you will have to chop more of the lateral, right, to create the parallel path of insertion if it is already mesially inclined. Yes or no, please? Because FPD requires parallel path of insertion between premolar and your lateral. And if your lateral is mesially inclined, you are going to chop off more on the mesial surface to create the parallel surfaces of the abutment. So it will again hamper the tooth biologically. Yes, Kanan, beautiful. Right? Is everyone with me? Is everyone paying attention? Is it all coming to life? All the concepts. Tell me, these are the situations that ADC will ask you in exam. What are the problems? What are the challenges? What are the consequences? How will you avoid it? So the consequence can be, it can lead to your failure of the conventional crown. It can increase the risk of debonding also, more reduction as well. Then other problems that you can face while replacing the maxillary canine is poor abutment suitability and high functional load. Because it's a canine situation, it's a high functional load area. Then poor abutments because both premolars and laterals are naturally smaller root and crown. So they are naturally poorer abutments. Both are less favorable to resist the lateral forces which the canine will be constantly facing. So what are the problems that we can face? You have a missing maxillary canine. You will assess horizontal as well as vertical space. You will assess your abutment teeth. You will do a diagnostic wax up essentially for evaluating the space distribution, testing the appearance, planning, tooth preparation, and then assessing the lingual clearance. Right? Is that correct or not? All these will be required or not? So in the exam, the questions come in the sequence of diagnosis and management planning. This is your management planning. This is your information gathering cluster. What is the horizontal space? What is the vertical space? Right? This is your information gathering cluster based on the abutment teeth assessment and the space assessment. Then your management planning is diagnostic wax up, right? And then choosing the treatment between either giving a conventional bridge, single premolar cantilever, double abutment cantilever, single tooth implant, which is in most case ideal but not always. We'll discuss how it cannot be ideal in certain situations, and sometimes minimal preparation bridge. So first option, which is our conventional bridge, right? Using the lateral incisor and premolar as abutment. So two retainers are placed, one on the lateral incisor and one on the first premolar. Lingual clearance is for your canine guided occlusion, Runalili, where the lingual cusp is prepared along with the inclines of your lower canine, so that when there is lateral excursion, you require that lingual recreation of the occlusal guidance. Yes, Mrunali, got that? Lingual clearance, the space of upper canine with lower canine, because that is the inclines that touch each other and come into the canine guided occlusion. Yes or no, please? Right? And that you will assess where? On your semi-adjustable articulators. Is that correct? With your diagnostic wax up also, and on your articulators as well. Now coming and discussing every treatment option in detail. Is everyone's attention with me still? Am I holding your attention? We are still in the attention span or not? All right, beautiful. So when you're giving a conventional bridge design, you're using the lateral incisor and premolar as your abutments. So two retainers are placed, one on lateral, another on the first premolar, and missing canine is replaced by a pontic. Very simple, right? Clear? There is no problem with that. This is one of the conventional treatment options. It provides aesthetic control because you can control the adjacent teeth and width also with it, right? Yes or no, please? It provides you better aesthetic control. Better symmetry can be achieved. So horizontal space is also, if present excessively, it can be masked and disguised using this design best. Yes or no, please? So whenever you have more horizontal space, this is your one of the possible aesthetic choices. Now you will require to do diagnostic wax up, which you will show to the patient to compare different aesthetic outcomes. Agreed or not? In this situation, a wax up will still be needed to adjust the width, etc. Now, where can this option be unsuitable? Let's discuss that. Usually we think it works, but it will not work in certain situations. So let's discuss where it will be unsuitable. One, wherever there are lateral incisor problems like a mesially inclined lateral or a short clinical crown, or there is a retention problem, right? Or a periodontal compromise as well. So lateral incisor can give you that problem where you can't give a conventional fixed bridge situation where the risk of debonding is higher. Okay? Because preparing a crown requires at least 1 to 2 mm of occlusal reduction, and most commonly people are going metal free bridges now. So PFM also requires 1.5, right? And your lithium disilicate also requires 1.5 to 2 mm in the anterior, right? So you are requiring a lot of preparation, and if you have too little tooth structure, then the retention and the resistance form will be affected or not? Yes or no, please? Are you all gathering? No matter PFMs or lithium disilicate bridge, 2 mm prep is required, 1 to 2 mm prep is required. And if it's a very small lateral, then it will affect the resistance form as well as the retention form. The abutment would be compromised. So what treatment option should be considered when your lateral incisor? So this can only be done when you have sufficient crown height and size of lateral incisor. Alignment is favorable, there is no mesial inclination, periodontal support is good, and patient is ready to accept crowns on both the teeth. Does that make sense? All these factors are required for you to go for this. Patient is ready to get both the teeth covered with crown. Periodontally, both abutments are good. Alignment is favorable. And your lateral has enough tooth structure and adequate crown height. Yes or no, please? Does that make complete sense now for everyone? So these are the requirements. And it should be avoided when your crown is too short, tooth is severely tilted, mesial inclination, tooth is minimally restored and healthy, and retention is inadequate. Sometimes the tooth is so healthy that you don't want to cut it, and then you can consider cantilever model as well. Okay? Beautiful smiley. So, an ADC is emphasizing on cantilevers a lot these days, right? So, ADC is emphasizing and looking at it as an option. ADC released files has revealed to us that cantilevers are in some situations treatment of choice. So you can have two types of cantilevers, which is single cantilever or double cantilever, where you can use one premolar or two premolars as abutment. Is that correct? Difference between single simple cantilever and your double cantilever. So the single cantilever bridge, the pontic will extend mesially without support from the lateral incisor. Yes? And it is conservative, very conservative. It provides easier oral hygiene. It also avoids giving crown on lateral incisor. But it becomes unsuitable when the premolar is also too small and the space is too wide, as a large edentulous space will create a long liver arm. Is that correct? So when the space is too wide and you try to replace it one abutment on premolar and a very wide pontic. So you can't give a pontic which is wider than your abutment. That will become a larger liver arm. So it will lead to debonding of the abutment. Yes or no, please? So pontic cannot be wider and shouldn't be wider than your abutment. Yes? So you can't give in these two situations. You can consider it only when the occlusal forces are lighter, space is small, and premolar is very strong and well supported. So where is it contraindicated? When the canine space is wider, when there is heavy occlusion, bruxism, and a very small or compromised premolar. So exam can give you different histories or not. So you will know where your single premolar but cantilever would be contraindicated. So now throw in bruxism in the patient history. Heavy occlusion or cracked teeth or wide canine space or small or compromised premolar. There your cantilever would be Contraindicated. Yes or no, please? This is exactly exam situation where you know not to choose this option. I told you rule out only seems easy because you have learned the concepts. Yes or no, please? Give me a big yes in all caps if you remember my advice. Rule out seems easy, but it also only works when you have learned so many concepts. So you know how to rule out. Because if you're half cooked knowledge, you can't even do rule out. Forget about the ash part of the rash. Right? Is that right or wrong? With half cooked knowledge, people can't do even rule out in the exam. And that is why you'll see in other academies mostly are only concerned with the rule out because of the half cooked information that they are getting served. They can't barely rule out. Forget about the ash. They can't do the R also completely and confidently. Is that correct? All these lectures, all these series are important. This extensive preparation is important to get to the accurate answers in exam. That is how you succeed in ADC. ADC doesn't happen with fluke. ADC doesn't happen with half cooked information and very short silly AI notes. ADC cannot be cracked like that. ADC is a very critically thinking exam. Nobody can teach you that thinking unless you do this intensive Winsport program. That is your sure shot success to ADC. And I'm telling you each time, rule out only seems easy to you in exam because you're preparing so well from your Winsport classes and notes. That is the only reason you find it extremely easy to rule out. So now you know that where you will rule out the single, premolar, cantilever, bruxism, wide canine space, heavy occlusions, and small or compromised premolars. Yes or no, please? Agreed? Now, other situation is using both premolars as your double abutments. So both your first and second premolars can be splinted together, and then the first premolar. So both are abutments, and then your canine is the pontic. It gives you increased support because two roots are there, better resistance, improved ability to resist lateral canine forces, right? And it also preserves your lateral incisor because small lateral incisor preparation is too harmful biologically. However, question will ask you, what is the drawback of this model? There is only one drawback is there is an increased risk of caries beneath the most distal retainer. Beautiful, Akshata. And this risk can be reduced by assessing the caries risk carefully, ensuring good oral hygiene, maintaining accessible embrasures, and preserving the adequate interproximal cleaning space. This is all exam options. Can you please pay attention? ADC can change the language of one of these statements and they will become wrong or right like that. So you have to assess the caries risk. Number one, ADC will ask you that if you're giving double abutment, what is the risk? High caries risk. What are your assessment? Caries risk evaluation, ensure good oral hygiene, maintain accessible embrasures into which you can use super flosses and maintain with your flossing or interdental brushes, and preserving the adequate interproximal cleaning space. Is that crystal clear or not to everyone? Right? Now, what other thing you can, this treatment option is usually an excellent choice when your premolars are healthy, periodontal support is good, and patient has low caries risk. Yes or no, please? Does that make sense? Where this is indicated? And the contraindication is poor oral hygiene, high caries risk, and limited cleaning access. Contraindications also clear, so you know which history you will rule out, which history will make you choose this answer. So rash application, everything comes from these core classes. Yes or no, please, if you're realizing the depth and gravity of this entire series and purpose of doing it. In heavy occlusion, yes, because it withstands your lateral forces better than your single one, right? As we discussed the benefit of it, that it withstands the lateral forces better, right? Now the other treatment option is single tooth implant, where you give an implant fixture, Give an abutment on it and give a canine crown. It is the best treatment option where possible because it does not involve any adjacent tooth. It preserves the tooth structure. It provides excellent biomechanics. It's a long-term predictable option and it maintains the bone as well. Right? So these are all the benefits of your implant, right? In general. Doesn't involve adjacent teeth, preserves tooth structure, excellent biomechanics, long-term predictability, maintains bone. Right? Now, single tooth implant is indicated when there is adequate bone volume, good oral hygiene, non see if your second abutment is a problem, right? If there is a high caries risk and spaces are wide, zoom, then you will have to go with a single abutment too. So it's not a complete contraindication in this situation, but premolar has to be really good. Okay. So wherever the double would be contraindicated and you have a wider space and a lateral is a problem, then a single premolar cantilever can be used. Is that clear, Zoom? So it may not be your first choice, and that is how you learn sequencing. Zoom, are you enrolled with us? So in RASH technique, how you sequence it, this is where I'm teaching you sequencing. Everybody, let's have another aha moment. This is your sequencing or not of choosing options in exam based on the history, based on sequencing, based on the situation present. So you know where it is the best treatment option. Now, indications of implant is that you need adequate bone volume, you need good oral hygiene, you need non-smoking situation or controlled smoking while you're planning implant, and patient must be willing to undergo the implant surgery. Contraindication is obviously the same as for implant if there is not enough bone, if there is an uncontrolled systemic disease, poor oral hygiene or heavy smoking. That is your standard implant contraindications. Another option is your minimal preparation bridge, where a metal or ceramic wing is bonded to the palatal surface of your abutment, palatal wing, and then a pontic. So it is your minimal prep. See that? Everybody see that? It's kind of like an onlay situation, right? Giving a cuspal coverage also, right? Little bit giving cuspal or just on the wall, but yes, using it. So where can you use this minimal prep bridge? And it can be given in certain situations when your premolar has extensive restorations and you don't want to prepare it more fully. When your lateral is too small and you don't want to use it. When your horizontal space discrepancy remain unsolved, then you can't do your fix and your lateral cannot be used. In those situations, you can use your either your minimal prep can also be done here. Like you see here, this is also your winged retainers, Maryland. Yes, Aisha. This is metal ceramic. This is purely ceramic. Can you see here? Minimal prep in ceramic. Here only premolar partially covered, single wing. Can you all see it here? Premolar, single wing, and the ceramic pontic. Can you all appreciate it here? And this is where you have your both-sided minimal prep wing, double-sided. It's a cantilever. This is your conventional, but minimal prep. Can you please appreciate that? This is your minimal prep cantilever. This is your minimal prep conventional using central and lateral. In the heavily restored, where you don't want to prepare more, then you can only use a palatal wing. Would the small lateral contraindication also be because the canine, sorry, let me read that question. So heavily restored abutments, you can give minimally prep cantilevers or minimally prep conventional restoration, right? Does that make sense? Minimal prep bridges can be given. Yes, this is for replacement of central incisor. This is for replacement of canine. So how are you comparing the treatment options of all your replacement of canines? So let's learn the sequencing also here, okay? Can we please pay attention and focus on sequencing, because this table will help you take decisions in exam. This is most crucial. Can I please have your attention? So let's see. So when your treatment options are conventional bridge, when your treatment option is single premolar cantilever, when your choice is double abutment cantilever, when you choose implant, and when you go with minimal prep bridge. Do we want to know? This is more than a sequence, I would say, is H component, what's given in the history. Is that right or wrong? More than a proper sequence, it's more than an H component of rash, what's given in the history. Does that make sense? So main advantage of your conventional bridge is excellent aesthetic control. The mesiodistal bit can be controlled, but the contraindication is when lateral incisor is short or mesially inclined. So it is case dependent. Single premolar cantilever, advantage is that it's conservative. Limitation is that the single premolar is overloaded. That is why suitability is poor. So it would be sequentially always towards the bottom of your choices. Yes or no, please? Everybody, is that clear? So it would be at the bottom of your choices. And then comes our double abutment situation. So double abutment is better load distribution, and the drawback is that the distal retainer will have high caries risk. So it is a better alternative than your single abutment cantilever. So it would come higher, but only will become contraindicated based on the history on caries. So you will have to apply rash here for sure. Yes or no, please? These are complicated questions. Every time you will need to apply rash and focus on the history and all the case factors which are given to you. Then comes your single tooth implant. It will preserve your adjacent teeth. It will require surgery. So suitability is ideal wherever the space is good, bone is good. It is an ideal treatment choice. Can be a problem where the patient says, I have financial constraint or doesn't want to go under surgery for implant, right? Or doesn't have enough sufficient bone. Then comes your minimal preparation bridge. Of course, suitability is very limited. So again, comes in bottom along with your single premolar cantilever. Minimal prep bridge is also your bottom choices. Agreed? So top choices are conventional, double abutment or implant. Yes or no, please. Then based on the situation and given history in exam, you will keep applying rash. This is the knowledge you are acquiring for rash. Am I really making sense? Like, is it giving you that confidence that yes, I know that these, how I will sequence it, how I'll see the factors in the history now, right? So minimal prep also. So, and this is not just in this case. Now, any tooth replacement, you know the challenges of conventional bridge, you know the challenges of single abutment cantilever, you know the challenges of double abutment cantilever, you know the challenges of implants, you know the challenge of minimal prep. So, kind of like with this one case, I am preparing you for all kinds of FPDs. You realize that? It is giving you the confidence to choose the correct FPD design in any situation because of your now all the factors that we discussed. What are the main advantages, disadvantages, indications, contraindications, right? See, cantilever is a design which is one-sided supported, Sarah. Minimal and conventional is where you have minimal wing. When you have only one surface wing, that is minimal. When you give full crown, it is conventional, right? So cantilever is where abutment is only present on one side. Absolutely correct, Shreya. So is that crystal clear for everyone? This sums up the complete designing of your FPD for single tooth replacement. I covered the most challenging situation, so you can totally in exam talk about any other tooth. If you can fix canine problem with an FPD design and understand, then any tooth can be covered. So now you don't really have to talk about every single tooth because you have covered from the most challenging tooth. Does that make sense? And does that give you a super confidence in exam for any FPD selection criteria? Right? Now, what factors you will be looking for in the history? What factors you will be looking for in your information gathering in the history provided, and how to sequence as well? The caries problem, the load distribution, bruxism, bone levels, heights, horizontal space, right? The periodontal challenges, mesiodistal space, Preeti, beautiful, right? Is it all beautiful or not? Now, every design of FPD, indications, contraindications, advantages, disadvantages, all are provided to you and they will be added to hot notes. Okay. So you can review everything again from your hot notes again. Now, in exam, when you revise all these hot notes, any challenge you would be able to confidently resolve. Marriage. Sequentially, I gave you between single and double when there is no contraindication to double. Did I not give you sequence? How can you not decide? When I've already given you the sequence without contraindication, I asked you to put the single cantilever in the bottom. Sequentially, I gave you. So if there is no caries risk, it is obvious you will go with double abutment, no marriage. Tell me yes or no, please, quickly, because I have one more topic to cover and then we'll end the class. Is everyone having the bandwidth in their brains to go more deeper with me? Tell me, are you up for it? One more topic. All right. All right, that's what I like it. I like that. Beautiful, Arzu. I'm so glad you're liking it this way because now these discussions open up your brain to a level of understanding and thinking which you are practicing now, but in exam you can't think like that without having those discussions right now. Does that make sense? That in exam you don't have time and understanding to dive that deep unless you have been to those depths in the preparation. Does that make sense? Why do Winspert candidates exam feel like, oh, it was so easy? I know it. The confidence, the joy, the light that radiates out of them on the center, which people see every batch, every exam, the center shines through the wind spotlight is because of this in-depth diving that we do, the under ocean diving that we do in the concepts during our preparation. Do you get the gravity and depth of it, right? Exactly, Arzu. Unless you practice, and that is why my motto is what? Sweat more in practice and bleed less in war. This is exactly what we are doing right now. We are sweating more in practice today so we don't bleed in exam. We don't lose questions because we did not have in-depth understanding in such details, such nuances. Do you get now? Now do you understand that motto, what it means? Sweat more in practice and bleed less in war. That is why we come out winners in ADC exam time and again, every single time. And we are going to recreate and not just recreate, overcome and get better and create even better results in September 26. That's our resolution, right? So we are going to override our own success this time. We are going to perform even better than what we did in the March 26 with this level of knowledge, with this level of depth. And now I will start the last topic of today, which is wide edentulous spaces. Again, it would be still the same situation. So it is still in coherence with the problem that you discussed with me in the last topic, which is the wider mesiodistal width, right? I'm going much deeper into that because it will help you again reiterate those situations. And I'll discuss one case with you. And we are kind of talking more about the FPD designs of movable, non-movable, etc. So it is not just like just wide edentulous spaces, but other your standard FPD designs and questions which keep coming in exam. All right. So a wide edentulous space is an edentulous area where the mesiodistal width is greater. You understood that, right? In the previous concept. And what it gives you the problem of maintaining ideal tooth proportions. There is compromised symmetry, which we also discussed. They are mostly encountered when a maxillary lateral or a canine is missing. These are the two situations where this problem is mostly encountered. Because this is the aesthetic area. Here, even slightest 0.5 or 1 mm of width difference will make a big impact. So the factors when you are considering, when you're preparing the planning of these areas is the horizontal space available. And as discussed, you know and understand the importance of diagnostic wax up in these situations. It's a quick overview of what I just taught you. So give me yes or no's if it's all coming together. It's a kind of revision, right? So tooth proportions are involved, symmetry is involved. And now suppose you have uh, lateral and canine missing. Say, for example, your lateral is missing and canine is missing, right? Or maybe only canine is missing, but mesiodistal width is not enough. So sometimes you might also think one pontic versus two pontic. So where the space is not enough for one pontic and also not for two, these are your problem areas in wide edentulous spaces. Now, if the patient is already wearing a partial denture and he's happy with the appearance of that, try to recreate that shape and try to create same appearance in your FPD as well. What you would do in such cases, you will assess the oral health and abutment teeth, which I taught you in the previous topic also. Check what is the available vertical height, what is the remaining tooth structure, is there any erosion at restorations, anything present in the abutment teeth? You will check for each of that. Then you will see for gaining your vertical spaces or to close your mesiodistal spaces if orthodontics is also one of the choice. In younger patients especially, you can also use orthodontics to redistribute the space. Yes. So in adult patients may not be, but in younger patients, such problems can also be handled with orthodontics. Is that correct? Other option is bridges, where you can adjust the adjacent teeth width as well. So now when you give a bridge, this is the component of your bridge. So now in this topic, my most important focus is to teach you fixed movable design. Tell me who all gets confused with that here and wants to leave the class with complete crystal clarity on fixed movable design, where to put your uh, the female, where to put the male component, on which retainer, on which abutment, right? Yes. So let's have another aha moment. Let's have another eureka moment today. And we are going to have our all the confusions around the fixed movable design dispersed today. This is your fixed design, right? Two abutments, and this is your fixed connector. Is that correct? This is your fixed design, that the bridge is also fixed and even the connectors are also fixed, the rigid connectors. And this is the tooth which is getting replaced is known as your pontic. Now, what is your abutment? Abutment is the tooth which is providing the anchor for the bridge, right? And it supports the prosthetic unit, and it can either be your natural tooth or can be implant supported bridge also. Is that correct? Abutment can be on your implant or on the natural tooth. Yes, that is correct. Now, what is the retainer? Retainer is the crown. Sometimes crown, sometimes it can be minimally prep retainer as well. Minimal preparation bridge, I taught you in the previous topic. Somebody was confused still. So this is your opportunity to learn about different retainers. Minimal preparation retainer. Can you see here? This is minimal prep retainer. Pontic attached to minimal prep winged retainer. So this is on both sides. So will it be cantilever or conventional? If this is both sides, this is conventional. And this is minimal prep retainer. Yes or no, please? Is this resolved for everybody? I don't remember who had that doubt, but I hope it's clear for you now. Right? So this is your minimal prep retainer. Sometimes your retainer can be full prep also, full prep crown, which is your conventional full preparation retainer. Yes or no, please? So either a crown or a wing. When you use wing, you call it, yes, it can, Isha. You have to do special case selections, right? Right? And you have to redistribute the occlusal load on the pontic also. So it can be done, but there has to be some calibrations and some adjustments that need to be done. And the case selection also needs to be done. Okay? But you please understand that your minimal prep bridges are making their way back. So please learn both kinds of bridges. So three bridges I'm making you learn. Conventional fixed bridge, minimal prep bridge, cantilevers also, and fixed movable also. So in today's class, you will have full knowledge of all of this. Yes or no, please? Now retainer can be full prep, right? Or your minor prep. Okay? Then what is your pontic? Pontic is the artificial tooth which is replacing the missing tooth. Is that correct? These are your false tooth suspended in the middle of the bridge which is connected to your retainers. And it is connected either with your rigid connectors or movable joints. Is that right? In fixed movable bridge, there will be a movable joint. And in fixed bridge, it would be connected to the retainers with rigid connector. Yes or no, please? And pontic can be made from your ceramic, from gold, from PFM, right? It fills the space and it gives you the ability, your patient, the ability to chew, speech improvement, and appearance improvement. So it helps with function and aesthetics. There are various pontic designs, one which comes in the contact with the mucosa, other which doesn't come in contact with the mucosa. The mucosal contact ones are ridge lap, modified ridge lap, ovate, and conical. And the ones which do not come in contact is sanitary and modified sanitary. They do not come in contact with your mucosa. So these are your different pontic design. Amongst these all, conical, ovate, modified ridge, if all are given, what is your most universally accepted and best to choose if there are no other problems? The best one is mostly your modified ridge lap. It gives you aesthetics and it also gives you easy to clean accessibility. Hygiene and aesthetics both are balanced here. Sanitary is good for hygiene but poor aesthetics. Saddle ridge lap is completely contraindicated because it doesn't give you any oral hygiene option, right? So it is completely contraindicated. Conical, it is good for hygiene, right? But aesthetics are poor. It's not, is it better now? Fanny? Everyone? All right, beautiful. So see, the best pontic would be which would have balance of hygiene and aesthetics both. That is why modified ridge lap would come under that. Ovate gives you superior aesthetics, right? Very high aesthetics and negligible food entrapment also, but it requires surgical preparation. So you can't give it where you have ridge defects also, right? Where the bone is gone. That is why also very limited use. Best is your modified ridge lap. Now what is the connector? Connector is the connection between the pontic and the retainer. Yes? Connector is the connection between pontic and the neighboring tooth retainer, which is the crown or your wing. Agreed or no? Yes or no, please, everybody. So connector can be rigid or non-rigid. So if it is a rigid connector, it's called fixed bridge. If it's a non-rigid connector with using interlocking joints, it would be called fixed movable bridge. Yes or no, please? So far so good or no? And if you're looking at that fixed movable bridge picture, is it giving you jitters? Is it giving you nervousness? Where is the female? Where is the male? Which goes on the retainer? Which goes on the pontic? Yes? Right? So can you remember FP? sorry, MP. Can you remember one mnemonic, Simran? MP? Members of Parliament? MPs? So can you remember the male goes on Pontic and female on retainer? FR. Can you memorize that? MPFR. Male on the Pontic, female on the retainer. And now which retainer will have the female? Mesial or distal? Right? So MRF. Mesial retainer has the female. MRF and MP. MRF and MP. Is this now simple? And can you write this down, please, everyone? And is it perpetual resolution of this perpetual confusion? MRF and MP. Mesial retainer will have female and MP male would be on the Pontic. Yes or no, please now. MRF and MP. Clear for everyone? Everyone write down on your sticky note and put it on your sticky note wall. MRF and MP. Mesial retainer will have female and Pontic will have the male. Male is this protrusion and female would have the preparation and a seat to take the male receptor. Is that right? Male on Pontic and mesial retainer has the female, right? So is that clear now? Based on the connector design also understood or no? So now what are our conventional bridge designs? They are fixed, they are fixed movable, they are cantilever and they are spring cantilever. These three are clear, fixed, and fixed movable and cantilever. Spring also I'll show you. And then you have minimal prep bridge, which is also fixed, which is also fixed movable, which is also cantilever and spring cantilever. Okay? Right? Now fixed bridge is the teeth on either side of the edentulous space are directly linked to each other by rigid connectors. Is that correct? Everybody understands? The fixed bridge model, rigid connectors between the conventional full crown retainers and the Pontic. And you see it on the picture as well? Clear? No problem for that? And when you give a fixed model, you require parallel surfaces, parallel path of insertion and parallel preparation of the abutment teeth. That is the number one requirement to be able to give a fixed bridge, that your preparation of both the abutment should be parallel, but no undercuts. Yes? It is your fixed bridge. For a conventional bridge, the tooth preparation should not have any undercut, but should have a parallel surfaces or parallel path of insertion. Then comes your fixed movable design. It is similar to your fixed as the abutment teeth are linked, but in this case, there is your movable joint also present. So there is a movable joint with a semi-precision. So there can be different kinds of connectors. Either precision attachment, where it is more rigid and it gives you the improved fit, but the male and female is still same. And semi-precision attachments, which are more flexible, which is more like ball and socket kind of appearance. Then comes your cantilever bridges. So what are your cantilever bridges? It is a simple design. Pontic is only supported on the one side. See, fixed movable arzu is given in the situation when you have tilted molars, when you can't create parallel path of insertion without chopping your abutment tooth very invasively. In those cases, you give two separate components as fixed movable bridge in non-parallel abutments. Absolutely, Rifna. So tilted molars are your indication for fixed movable bridges. Clear for everyone? Yes or no, please? So that you don't have to cut off the tilted tooth and you can achieve two separate path of insertions because both the component of the bridges will be cemented separately. Okay? And even for pier abutments to distribute the load. Okay? Because parallel path of insertion, cutting 3-4 teeth in parallel path of preparation is harder. So the major advantage of fixed movable is that it allows the non-parallel preparations and save the tooth structure. Pure abutment is a standalone abutment. Anchal, say your first molar is missing and first premolar is missing. So your second premolar is your pure abutment, where your abutments are second molar, second premolar, as well as your canine. Is that correct? Anchal, suppose the first premolar and first molar are missing. If the first premolar and first molar are missing, then your second premolar becomes the lone standing abutment. It has a pontic on mesial side and pontic on distal side. So it has excessive load. So you want to reduce the load on this pier abutment also. So you will give a fixed movable design in the posterior distal component with the same female male design. Right, Anchal? So pier abutment is also an indication of using fixed movable bridge design. When you have first molar and first premolar missing and you're giving a long span bridge of canine to second molar. Canine to second molar is a long span bridge which has one pier abutment. There is excessive load on pier abutment and to achieve parallel path of insertion on these three abutments is challenging. Ananya, you are missing out. Focus on the concept that I'm giving now. When you are preparing these three abutments, canine, second premolar and second molar, is it not a challenge to create parallel surfaces? Yes or no, please? The challenge is creating three abutments very far apart parallelly. And the other challenge is what, Ananya? Was that you also have excessive load on your pier abutment. So where would you, what model will you use here? Fixed or fixed movable? To save the tooth structure and to also save the load on the pier abutment. So fixed movable would be used. So your this one would be fixed, right? Canine to first premolar would be fixed, completely fixed. Okay? Canine to first premolar will be wholesome fixed right here, right? Completely going till behind here. Fulfilling complete from canine to second premolar, sorry, would be fixed. This one. And then the second premolar will become the mesial retainer or no? Then this second premolar is the mesial retainer. And your distal pontic. This is your distal pontic or no? First molar is your distal pontic. First premolar is your mesial pontic. Yes or no, please? Open your brains and imagine now. This is challenge. So now this is your distal pontic. So again, pontic has the male MP and mesial retainer on the second premolar will have the female MRF. Mesial retainer has the female and the pontic has the male. But this assembly goes on the distal pontic, not on the mesial pontic. Yes or no, please, in case of your long span bridges. Clear or not clear? Absolutely clear or not clear? This is your benefit. So what are the benefits of your fixed movable? It preserves the tooth structure so that parallelism is not extremely obsessively required, and it distributes the load also, takes off some load also, rigid load from your pier abutment. Yes? Simple, easy peasy lemon squeezy now. Now comes our cantilever bridges, as you can see here. This is mostly used to replace single teeth, right? And then comes your spring cantilever. So can you appreciate on the picture here, the spring cantilever? When the pontic and retainer have in between teeth and you don't want to use that model, but the in between tooth is not a correct abutment, so you're using the farther abutment because that is a stronger abutment. Like central is a better abutment for canine than your lateral. Yes or no? Central is a better abutment than your lateral for the canine. So you're using it as a farther space. And you also extend this connector on the palate. So you're also using some support from the soft tissue. Yes or no, please? So you're partly taking the support from the soft tissue by making the connector like this. Yes? So spring cantilever is rarely used design where the pontic is placed from the distance from the retainer. Then comes our implants. It is a single implant, most conservative choice, the best in ideal situations, right? Now let's see one case study here and let's decide what you will choose. So you will practice all the concepts here. So this is a case of Mary, 35-year-old woman, presented with missing canine and lateral incisor in upper jaw, and she requests for a bridge to restore the edentulous space, which is about 12 millimeters. So wide space of 12 mm, lateral and canine, both are missing here. Yes, can you see two teeth are missing and the space is insufficient for two teeth? Yes or no, please? So horizontal space problem is there or no? So it's a wide edentulous space, right? It's a wide edentulous space, but not enough for one pontic and not enough for two pontics also. Let's see. The challenge is the treatment options begin as first orthodontics, right? Would that be considered as the most feasible treatment option? Because that would be the most ideal treatment in this case. Because it redistributes the space, corrects the tooth inclination, right? It corrects the tooth inclination as well. As you see, the centrals are more palatal than your laterals and canine. Can you see that? So it's your class 2 div 2 because you have your retroclined centrals. So orthodontics will correct your inclination of centrals as well as redistribute the space, but it would be a long treatment time. That would be a challenge. But it is the most ideal treatment. Give me yes or no if you agree with that. Then what are the bridges that you can give here? Let's consider various bridge designs that you can consider here. Bridge designs that can be considered, and we'll see the pros and cons, advantages, disadvantages, just like our last case. So fixed bridge, fixed design. Then two separate conventional cantilevers, right? One using central and one using premolar. Two separate cantilevers. Then one is one conventional cantilever with double premolar abutment. Then other is one simple cantilever, conventional cantilever using premolar. So single premolar cantilever, double premolar cantilever, two separate cantilevers using central as one and premolar as one, and one is complete fixed bridge using central and first premolar as your abutment. Is that correct? These are the options. So let's see the challenges of each. So fixed, the width of the retainer and pontic can be altered and it's the best to hide the asymmetry. Yes or no, please? Edentulous space can be restored with either one pontic or two pontic by adjusting the width of your premolars and centrals. If one pontic is given, then you will increase the abutments width. And if you're giving two pontics, then you will narrow your abutments. Is that correct? So So both the abutments will be fully prepared for crowns for retainers and you will adjust the width. Sarah, if you are replacing with one pontic, you will make your central and premolar wider to accommodate the space. Yes or no, please, Sarah? And if you're giving two pontic, then you will chop off your premolar and make it smaller to accommodate two pontic smiley. Right? That you will have to see with wax up, diagnostic wax up. That is why I say smiley, and that is why I taught you the concept that multiple wax up are needed in these situations, because you can't imagine these things. You have to see on the wax up which looks better, giving two pontics or one pontic. You can't take that judgment without diagnostic wax up, and that is why ADC will ask you this question: what is mandate to be done before you can decide one pontic or two pontic is a wax up? Does that make sense for every one of you? Now, other situation is, so that is why you will not alter centrals much. You will mostly alter premolar much, right? That is why wax ups, that is why we need wax ups. So two separate conventional cantilevers. What are the problems with that and what are the benefits of that? So central incisor can be used for distal cantilever and place a lateral incisor, and premolar can be used as a cantilever to replace the canine. Does that make sense mentally to everyone? What is two separate conventional cantilevers? Central is cantilevering lateral incisor and premolar is cantilevering your canine, right? So the benefit is it allows the flexibility in modifying the crown widths more, right? But it is less favorable if premolar is not suitable for a lone abutment of canine. So it is sequentially less beneficial than your fixed bridge. Yes or no? I'm just giving you these options and discussing it to sequence, because ATC will not give you all the options. It will ask to select the best amongst the given. So if premolar is compromised, then you can't use the premolar to cantilever canine. Is that correct? That is why fixed design would be beneficial. So generally this would not be recommended. But if fixed design is not given an option, then two separate conventional cantilevers are only allowing you to give your width adjustment on the abutments. Then comes our conventional cantilever with double premolar abutment. You will use both your premolars and then give a canine pontic, single canine pontic. It will improve the retention and resistance form, right? But it still does not fully resolve the symmetry and proportion issues. Is that correct? If you give only one pontic here, one pontic, using both these abutments also, still the symmetry issue is not resolved here. Yes or no, please? Symmetry issue will only be resolved with the fixed design. Yes or no? Because if you're using these two abutment and give one pontic, you still have that gap. So either you leave that gap, which is aesthetically not the correct suitable option. Even if you give a single cantilever. See, cantilever, when I use the term conventional with the cantilever, Caroline, conventional is crown and other term is minimal prep, minimally retained, right? Minimal prep retainers. So whenever I use the term conventional, please know that means crowned, complete crowned abutment or retainer. Okay? Conventional only means that. Conventional means full crown as retainers. And other term is minimal prep. All right? So whenever I'm using the terms conventional here, that means we are talking about full crowns only here, not minimal prep wings. We are not talking wings, we are talking crowns. Is that clear for everyone? So now the conventional single premolar also has that problem that it will not give you the aesthetics and width distribution. Then comes our last choice, which is implant, which would be the most conservative of all the choices. But again, the bone has to be there, and the width problem is still not resolved. There is not enough space for two implants here. Is there? There is not enough space for two implant fixtures, and the crown would be too wide. So again, you would be ending up having the spaces. So now please tell me which becomes for this case the best aesthetically providing and solving the problem is your fix with your width adjustment. Is that correct? Either single Pontic or double Pontic, that decision will be made on your diagnostic wax up. Clear for or not for everyone? Right? All right. So that would be it for today. And I hope that opened up a lot of windows in your brain, and it did help you with a lot of confusions with such high yield FPD concepts. You love this series, Dia? So do I. And there's a lot more coming. There are total 11 topics. Can I tell you that? 11 topics that we are covering in this series. And we are only done with 4. So we still have how many? 7 more to go. Most likely at least 2 or 3 more parts. So it would be a 4. It is a heavy cardio, yes. Thank you so much, Alale. And all prosto. Yes, Nivedita, it's combination of FPD and CD. So 7 topics, 7 topics are FPD and 4 are CD. Or maybe 8 or 3, something like that. Thank you so much, Sebastian. And I hope it all made sense and it all was so elaborative and easy and simplified still. And yes, all the hot notes will be provided, Marin. Don't worry at all. Reason for fixed movable ano is when you have tilted abutments, when the parallel path of insertion is not achieved, and when you have lone standing abutments like pure abutments in second premolar situations. Arya, do you want me to add these to revision plan? I will do so. Because I have not even added them to the plan. This is a fresh class, right? So I will have to add it on the plan also, like first time for the next batch, and then as revisions also. So I'll do that. Thank you for reminding. I'll actually note down. And yeah, so it will go also on the plan. Like the radiology classes went on the plan, prosto classes will also go on the plan. And the hot notes will also be added. Case examples are already there on the hot notes, Anchal. Don't worry, absolutely. This is all going on the hot notes. Nothing will be missed. Even more information would be there than already was there on the slides. Or if not, I hope you feel better soon. It is like for my brain is also buzzing right now. I mean, taking this class is also like I know what you guys would be feeling receiving all this, but let me tell you, even taking this class is also buzzing. Oh, thank you, Nikita. And my muscles, imagine Aisha right now speaking. So my throat muscles and my brain muscles right now both are. Thank you, Kushi, and I hope I can take that fear away. Thank you, Ananya. And guys, if you really want to join us and want to have such more classes, please join the course. We are still taking intakes for September exam, and we are still taking, and we are actually taking our dual course intakes as well for March 27. And we are having so much fun doing so many classes. And how's the confusion diffusion going? I wanted to ask, how's that confusion diffusion, selecting all the concepts, collecting all the concepts, and then reviewing them all at one place? So in later weeks, you can simply go to the group and just scroll through those concepts. It's helpful, right? It's your own encyclopedia in making for ADC. All right. I think it was quite an intense pure abutment. It was to se canine to second premolar is fixed, yes. And second premolar will be the mesial retainer, yes. Distal pontic is your first molar, right? Simran, everything was right, but your distal pontic is the first molar. Because second molar is your distal retainer, distal abutment, right? So first molar was missing, no? Yeah. So Pontic is the missing tooth, no, Simran? Where is what? Pontic. Simran. First molar is missing, so Pontic is the missing tooth. That's okay. I understand. It happens. Brain is not braining. Yes, Rajni, I agree with that. Yes, Shreya, thank you so much. Ortho can be done at any age, Amrit. Yes. Female is going on the mesial of the mesial abutment. MRF, mesial retainer. So don't call mesial abutment. Let's call it TIBA mesial retainer, right? But in pure abutment, it would be on the mesial retainer, but on the distal aspect of the second premolar, right? TIBA, TIBA. I have taught this concept so in depth and beautifully in the 1,000 classes. Now, no one remembers. I used to take pride in teaching this concept in thousands. Have you not been through that? Tiba, have you watched that 1,000 prosto where I taught the complete fixed movable and distal of the mesial retainer? Yes. Rifna, yes. Okay, go through it and you will fall in love with that class. It's amazing class. It is Simran. It is on the 1,000 prosto. Why we couldn't keep on canine medial retainer? Because where are the forces higher, Krishna? Where are the forces higher? Forces are higher on the pure abutment, right? And on the molar situation. So molar pontic has more load, on the first premolar has more load, heavy load. So that pontic will have the movable joint. Yes or no, please? And it also acts as a fulcrum. Yes, so it breaks that load and prevents the supraeruption. All right, let's take a break and see you next week for the third part of the series. And we have still so much to do this week. We have our UF2 class. Tomorrow we have our 3P session for everyone who joined this week. Please do not miss the 3P class because one of our mentor would be guiding you through the study plan, guiding you through the app, giving you the entire app tour, everything. So if you are recently joining us, if you have just joined us, please watch tomorrow's 3P class and get clarity on everything. You can ask her any question. Then Thursday we'll meet for our UAF2. Then Saturday and Sunday you have your hot notes revision classes. All right? MP marriage, MP. So your male goes on Pontic and then MRF. Your mesial retainer has the female. Is that clear, marriage? MP is male pontic and MRF is your mesial retainer has the female. Now no more. Dead. All right. Thank you so much, Akshita. Thank you, Eitri. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being the fabulous audience. I hope you had as much great time as much as I did. And yes, we are going to meet again. I will regain and rejuvenate and come back for a much stronger UF2 class on Thursday. See you all. Have a great week. And I hope you study a lot, study well, and rest as well in between. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care. Thank you. Truly grateful for you all. Bye. And yes, Eid Mubarak to all, everyone as well. Tomorrow is Eid. So I will be wishing you also tomorrow, but Eid Mubarak to everyone who is observing and celebrating. Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.